know what? I just want to thank you, Gary. I mean, it's just been a pleasure, the idea of bringing us together to talk about this whole idea of facilitation masters conversation. And Ingrid, thank you. I know you're on the screen, and so it's really a pleasure. And I just think this is a great opportunity for us to share some of the insights we found along the way.
Well, and I appreciate both of you being willing to do this and giving up your time. I think it's going to be interesting hearing from all three of us, because I think it's an interesting group of people.
Yes.
We've got a little experience, and
Yes.
I wanted to tap into that. And
Well, before we
Right.
do that, I've got two memories of the both of you that I just wanted to just share. And Gary, you may remember. So I was with Ernst & Young from 85 to 91, and 85 to 92. And in 91, I had the pleasure of attending what was considered, without question, the best facilitation course in the world. You had this 6-day course out of Chicago, and I was there with 16 people. And I have shared on many occasions what I have felt was one of the most incredible experiences I had in my life. This is where you had all of us facilitate over the last 2 days, an extended session, 30, 45 minutes. And I was just so surprised at what happened over those 2 days, because no matter who got up, the group would take on the energy of the facilitator. If the person was high energy, the group would become high energy. If the person was low energy, the group would go low energy. If the person was folksy, the group would become folksy. And it was just, I watched it happen 16 times, how the group took on the energy of whatever the facilitator was. And that certainly had me to the point where I realized this thing called facilitation training, I want in. It's up school. On you, on the other hand, and talking with Ingrid, I remember at an IAF conference where you were running a session called Managing the Mob. And I got to tell you, I came in late. I was maybe 15 minutes late. And it was listening to people. They were arguing. There were probably 50, 60 people in the room. You had managed it so that they would be in an argument, and people taking stands, and people were disagreeing. And it was downright phenomenal watching that happen. And then you stepped in and said, you know what, let me ask you something. And you just brought it out, and used some techniques where all of a sudden they were now talking with each other. And I just said, man, this is the queen of facilitation. I was impressed. But that's my experience, my memory of the two of you, which was just wonderful. So I appreciate sharing the stage with you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
yeah, and I remember the class that you were in.
Okay.
I remember afterwards at the very end, I'll never forget it. You came up to me and you said, Gary, what do you think I ought to do? And I looked at you and said, quit Ernst & Young and go on your own. And I'll never forget that. And, I've been happy and regretful of that ever since.
That's right.
I mean,
Yes.
I went up and built this consulting group and all. And so I tell people, I trained you for my competition.
You created me. I'm the monster you created. So yeah,
I'm glad I did. And I remember, Ingrid, every time I had to work with you on the IAF and got to meet with you there, the one thing I know is that you and Michael, the two of you, I've always were able to count on you two. And so I appreciate that. And it's also great. I love working with intelligent people.
Thank you. Well, you two have both been leaders in the IAF. Both of you have taken on the job of running whole entire conferences, which is a massive thing. And the Facilitator Impact Awards that you started, Michael, I think are ongoing in terms of how they impact the field, giving recognition to clients, the projects they do. So both of you really have done a tremendous amount to make the field what it is. So thanks to both of you.
Well, we can jump in with the first question, shall we?
Absolutely.
Why is facilitation important and for whom? Why do leaders need it most of all?
So why don't you kick in with that one, Ingrid?
I can only go by what I've seen in the many training classes I've run, and it's usually managers and leaders who come up and say, I should have had this training years ago. Or I just realized that facilitation is what's been missing in how I've been running my teams. So I'd say based on that observation, I think the person who needs it most is leaders, because it gives them those tools that they need to be able to use conversation in a really structured way to get at the goals that they want to achieve.
I love it. I want to add on to what you said. So as you're thinking about what we have developed something called leadership through facilitation. And what we've been saying is TAFA, take a facilitated approach. And we define that as, you can take a directive style to leadership, you can take a coaching style, you can take a delegated style. Now we're talking about a facilitated style. And so there are principles around how do you as a leader use facilitation in the way you interact with your people, customers, how you manage meetings, how you go about delegating projects, just taking the facilitative approach as a mindset. I think what Roger Shores is doing in really taking facilitation to the leadership level is something for us all to look at. But that's, I think, where we need to be.
Well, I think a good leader with facilitation skills is really the ideal servant leader.
Absolutely.
And it's the model of the future in terms of leadership. And it's interesting, I even used this when I ran my restaurant. And when I closed the restaurant, 3 members wanted to work for nothing because they enjoyed being treated that way.
Wow.
I think when we use the facilitation skills with people, we're not just facilitating, we're really empowering them and enabling them to really do their job, which is the definition of good leadership.
So what's the big difference then between a leader that's a good coach and a leader that's using facilitation?
I think a leader who uses facilitation is really focusing on the people and process that they're dealing with, as opposed to the content and the details that sometimes I think bog them down. And I've seen that with leaders way too often.
Well, yes, those detailed leaders.
And I think too, the difference is that in coaching, I think it seems to suggest a one-on-one relationship with people one at a time. Whereas I think the power of facilitation is that you can create a collaborative team. People can sit together to solve problems or create strategies. And I think that that's the missing piece with a lot of leaders, is they just don't have those group dynamic skills to get their team to be working together.
And I think the word team is really important.
That is good.
It's pulling together, instead of a bunch of people working to do something, they're working collectively. And I think it's the ultimate collaboration, which is an overused word, but in this way, it's the way it works.
And Ingrid, I love your point that it's not, coaching is often one-on-one. And what I get to is, leaders don't really know how to deal with conflict, right? And if you're in a coaching mode, hey, you can either direct or you can, well, when you've got 7, 8 people in a room, if you don't understand the skills of getting a group to consensus, right, you can really fall over yourself. And so taking all those skills about, and again, if you don't know how to empower a group, if you don't know how to get a group of people excited about taking something on, if you don't know how to process a conversation so that everyone feels heard, and not just one person, but the whole group feels heard. I get your point, Gary. That really is, those facilitation skills, huge difference.
Right.
If we can deliver them in a way that leaders can stand, because most leaders aren't going to sit through a 2 or 3 day course. How do we give them key skills and then give them the practice? Because that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, if they've got to, you just can't learn this stuff and expect, okay, I've read a book on tennis, now I can go out and beat Serena Williams. It's not going to happen. In the same way, you're not going to be able to read something on facilitation and automatically do it. You really got to practice.
That's true.
You've got to.
And I think to that point, one of the sad things right now is that the leaders of tomorrow aren't being led in this way. So they're not learning it sort of, through osmosis by having leaders who do these processes. A lot of people have never seen a leader behave like this, so they're not getting it naturally. So leaders who step into this role are sometimes the first. They're the model. And so I think that's, again, one of the challenges. How do you get the ball rolling so that it becomes just how people lead?
Well, and that's why I think, to your point, you're not going to get a CEO today to go off to a class to learn how to do this in practice. They're too busy, they're too bogged down with things. But I think all the people in the organization, all the people who are going to be future leaders, really need to learn how to do this. And they don't teach this in colleges at all. And I think a lot of the beginning people, as they're moving up in the organization, the more they learn how to do this, first of all, the faster they'll move up the organization, but the more it becomes part of the culture of the organization overall.
I think there's a white paper in this somewhere, team, that's on how to make this happen, one, what it is, and 2, how to get it into your organization.
Yeah. I also want to say one more thing. I need to thank Millie Rush. Millie came up with the idea for the conversations, and she came up with the idea for the title. And if it wasn't for her, I'd kind of wondering what to do. So thank you, Millie.
Thank you, Bill.
You take up the whole idea.
There you go.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Michael and Ingrid. I want to thank the two of you. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
It has been.
Being here with you two. You two people I greatly respect, both personally and professionally. So I think this has been great, and I hope we get an opportunity to converse in the future on other topics relating to facilitation and what we're doing, because I think this is important. It's, like you said, it's your ministry. I think it's our role to get this out there, and it's been my passion for a long time to be and drive facilitation. That's why I plan to do it until the day I die.